The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So we've just celebrated the festival of Kshtigarbha Bodhisattva. His name means Earth Store Bodhisattva. Simple, down to earth. He usually appears as a simple monk in simple robes. So humble and modest, approachable by all of us. We don't have to be afraid of Kshtigarbha. Picture on the altar. One of my favorites. There he is, dressed up this time, sitting, looking down into hell, because he has made this vow that he will not leave hell until all beings are released. So he's this tough little bodhisattva looking down with compassion into the flames of hell where beings are suffering. And this other picture, my absolute favorite, there he is. He's on a cliff out in the middle of nowhere, nobody around, not even a blade of grass. It looks like it's sunset. It's way high because the clouds are below him. And there he is, dressed to the nines, lotus crown, the whole lot, kneeling down and doing something with great intensity. Well, it's kind of a fuzzy picture. I don't know where it came from. If anybody ever knows, I'd love to know where it comes from. But there he is holding something. And I think it's a mirror that is using to catch the light and shine it down into hell. That's what I think it's doing. But it's doing it with complete intensity. Nothing else is happening. This is Kshtigarbha out there all alone on this cliff, dressed up, doing this. That's what he's doing. That's what he does. And I think that's lovely. I think it's worth... Actually, I could forget the talk and just let you see this picture. Well, what is a bodhisattva exactly? And there's different ways of describing what a bodhisattva is. It's not even clear to everybody, what exactly bodhisattva means. Bodhi means the aspiration for enlightenment, or even maybe enlightenment. And sattva can mean being, or it can mean a whole host of other things. I looked it up, the whole raft of meanings it can be. But really, it generally is taken to mean somebody who has the aspiration for enlightenment. And also wants to help other beings find enlightenment as well. Not just find enlightenment for themselves, but enlightenment for everybody. The vow not to enter nirvana until all beings can come with them. There's the great bodhisattvas like Avalokiteshvara, bodhisattva of compassion, Manjusri, bodhisattva of wisdom, and then there's Kshtigarbha, our earth store bodhisattva. And there's us, bodhisattvas with a little b, because we also have the aspiration for truth, for enlightenment, the wish to do something about ourselves. And not just that, but to help other beings as well. Not just, I want to be enlightened and forget everybody else, but actually we have that wish to help other beings as well. I think we all have that, actually. So we're bodhisattvas too, but little bodhisattvas. We're just starting, learning bodhisattvas. So Kshtigarbha, as I said, is one of our main bodhisattvas. Humble, down to earth. He helps ordinary beings with ordinary things. It's said that he helps farmers with their planting and their harvesting. Just down to earth, really, essential for people who live on the land. Nothing too lowly for him. The earth treasury, that which is humble, modest, and yet precious. We couldn't live without it, The truth is found in everyday life. Training is found in everyday life. There's nothing unworthy of it. It's not something up there, that we aspire to. It's found in the very daily things that we do, that we eat, that we work with. The respect for all things, for all life. Helping beings, helping ourselves, helping the animals, the plants, the things around us, taking care with our little saucepans and computers and cars and chairs and stuff. Taking care with everything. None of it is beyond Buddha nature, because it's all part of it, all worthy of respect and veneration, actually. And Kshtigarbha kind of shows that. There he is, even when he's dressed up, he's not doing some fancy thing. He's just there all by himself, doing this thing that he's doing, not being somebody, just doing what he has to do. He's a protector of the weak, particularly the vulnerable, those in difficult situations. Women, in the old days, women were very vulnerable, still are, but in the old days it was really hard being a woman. Women in childbirth, often they'd die, Children, he has a special role for children. In our invocations we sang, the two of them were about, they were kind of from the point of view of children, talking about the things that children fear, storms, bullying, death, actually, because children can die too. And traditionally, children would be part of the ceremony. We'd have them helping out with the offerings and so forth. We don't have any kids at the moment, but they may come again, but that's why we still sing those simple little invocations, because nothing is too simple, actually. We're not beyond it. Oh, I've got to do that child stuff. Actually, in a sense, we're all like children. We all have fear. Anyone can be afraid of thunderstorms. Anyone can be bullied, actually. Anyone can be afraid of those people in power who can be frightening to us. So it's not like it's something that we have no connection with. And that children who have died, Kshtigarbha has a special place for them, often in a cemetery, especially in Japan. There's a section for Kshtigarbha, Jizo Bosatsu. And he helps children who have died, miscarriages, abortions, children who died really young. They're all taken care of by Kshtigarbha. And children often during his ceremonies will bring a stone, especially a nice round stone. He likes round stones. And a child might bring a nice round stone as an offering of merit for children who have died, which is really beautiful because it shows that, yes, we can die too. We don't hide from the fact that, even when we're children, death can come to us all. We don't have to be living in fear of it, but to see it, not to have it hidden away from us as we mostly do in our culture. And they'll bring stones and give them to Jizo, Kshtigarbha. So those little bowls of stones represent that, little nice round stones. And Kshtigarbha takes them and makes them into jewels for merit for children, as it says in our scripture. The dying, the sick also, people in prison, all these people who are in terribly difficult, vulnerable situations. Kshtigarbha has a special place for them. It just especially helps them. If someone in prison, it's a very, very hard life, very, very dangerous. You need help. Kshtigarbha Bodhisattva. And especially those in the hells, in his great vow, as I said, not to enter nirvana until all beings are released. So there he is. He lives in hell. He's not actually just sitting out above it. He also dwells in hell right there with them. He knows what it's like, and he helps those beings there. No judgment. Not saying, the people in hell must have been really bad, I'm not going to help them. No judgment. Everybody needs help. No matter what we've done, no matter what we may think of ourselves, we all need help. And there's something really beautiful about a bodhisattva, who Kanjian does the same. Helping everybody. No judgment. No righteous and unrighteous, worthy and unworthy, none of that. Everybody can receive help. Everybody is worthy of help. Everybody needs help. So, compassion, boundless, without limit. As I said, he always appears as a simple monk. He's not frightening, he's approachable, Even when he's dressed up, you could go and talk to this guy. He has his kesa, which symbolizes the precepts. He's doing his training. As a monk, he's not beyond all that. He's just keeping the precepts like we do. And he practices the Dharma as we do. He has this jewel, the Nyoi jewel, which represents the Dharma. And it's like the children bring stones, it turns into a jewel, the jewel of the Dharma, that he offers to those who have died, or anybody who needs help. It offers that beautiful jewel of the Dharma. Priceless. And it helps us in all the situations of our lives. That jewel of the Dharma is never somewhere else. It's right here with us. No matter what happens to us, no matter where we may find ourselves, the Dharma helps us. No matter who we are, no matter what we may think of ourselves or how others may treat us, we have it. We always have it. We just have to practice it. It has this staff with 6 rings. The 6 rings are for the 6 worlds of rebirth into which beings can be born. There's humans, our world, animals, not an easy life, being an animal, no matter what kind of animal. Hungry ghosts, beings who are always wanting something, never can be satisfied. They're depicted as having tiny little throats and great big bellies because they can't take in the Dharma, they can't take in food, it turns to fire. Really a terrible suffering. Beings in the hells, a lot of suffering. There's all kinds of hells in Buddhism, but they're not permanent. You don't stay in hell forever. None of these realms is a permanent place. You're not consigned to hell forever. You're not up in heaven forever, because heavens are one of the realms too, but you wear up your merit and then you end up somewhere else. You could be an animal after that. It's not a permanent thing. So we're not trying to be reborn in one of the worlds, 6 worlds. The Asuras, the beings who are always fighting and wanting power, And these worlds can be seen as realms of rebirth, but they're also states of mind that we might go through, may rotate through them all many times in a day. 1 minute you may be in heaven, it may be in hell, you could be just in an ordinary human realm. Ignorance, animals, the world of ignorance, All these different realms, wanting, longing for something that you can't have. That's like a hungry ghost thing. It's really a suffering. So all of these realms can be seen as realms that we go through. And Kshtigarbha will help us in every one of them, no matter who we are, no matter what. He can help us in every single one of them. He has his jewel. The Dharma can help us in all these conditions of our lives, all the states of mind we go through, all the realms we find ourselves in at any time. The Dharma can help us, no matter what. So we can see our Bodhisattvas, we can see Kshtigarbha in various ways. We can see him as an actual being who helps us. And this isn't simplistic or childish, because beings do actually see Bodhisattvas. Kshtigarbha sometimes manifests to people. Hasn't manifested to me, but I don't disbelieve that that can happen. Other Bodhisattvas, people see them actually and receive help. Manjusri, always bailing people out to come to his mountain and end up in the snow. Held with Master Suyun, empty cloud, is lost in the snow. This being comes along and helps him. Finds him a nice warm place to sleep. And Suyun goes to sleep, wakes up in the morning, finds he's actually in a cold cave on the ground, but he's slept warmly and deeply. And he goes to the monastery and says, he explains what happened. They say, oh, that's Manjusri, he does that all the time. So how do we know? These things do happen. We can't say they don't. And we can see Kshtigarbha as a being like that. We can see him as an aspect of Buddha nature. There's aspects that we would like to cultivate ourselves too. Or our true refuge as compassion, unjudging compassion and kindness, protection for us when we feel vulnerable, we're in trouble. Doesn't have to be a being, but just an aspect of the beneficent universe, that which is good within all of us. There is goodness in the universe, there is goodness in all beings. No matter what it looks like, our world looks like a mess, it always does. At the moment it looks like it's worse than ever. And there's goodness. There's people doing good things. Everybody has that seed of goodness, no matter what they may have covered it up with, for whatever reason we don't know. But we can just trust that it's there, and trust that nobody is beyond redemption. Nobody is outside Buddha nature. We're all part of it. Help can come in all kinds of extraordinary ways when we ask for it, to open up to that help, You just never know. The beneficence of the universe, that jewel of the Dharma that can help us all. And we can see Kshtigarbha as aspects of ourselves that we want to cultivate. Fearless compassion, We'd like to cultivate deep compassion for all beings with no judgment. I'd like to be completely like that. And I think we'd all say, yes, I would like to be a being of deep compassion, wisdom and kindness. I just have all this stuff, And yet we all have that, and we can cultivate it. This wish to help all beings, including ourselves, not just everybody else except me. All beings. Generosity of heart. Absence of judgment, And this generosity and wish to help beings help us to overcome our own fear and our self-concern, because fear and self-concern are very closely related. And when we can reach out through that fear and self-concern with generosity and compassion, it helps us with our fear, helps us with our selfishness, helps us to live a happier and less fraught life. The wish to help beings. Heaven knows the world needs help. Beings need help, whether it's the universe in general, whether it's our whole world, or just the person next door, or somebody you run into in the supermarket. Just anybody can benefit from kindness, from compassion, a kind word, or just a respectful thought. Letting go of a judgmental thought we might have about somebody, just to let that go and offer them compassion, whether we say anything or do anything or not. To see that we're all deeply connected with each other. It's not like me and then everybody else. We're all actually part of one being. And the more we can see that, the more we can let go of our fearfulness, let go of that me versus everybody else, and just be part of everything and everybody. Fearless compassion, that's what it is, because they go together. Fearlessness, which doesn't mean there's no fear. It means we don't let it stop us. We may be afraid, but we don't let it bind us and I can't do anything. I better not say anything because they might, hurt me or think I'm silly or something. Just to say hello to somebody, or just to be kind to people, or think kindly of them. To be concerned with other beings, not just ourselves. No one is separate, nobody is other. We're all part of everything, no matter what. The willingness to ask for help. It can be hard to ask for help. We might think, well, I'm fine, I don't need help from anybody, I'm in control of my life. Well, actually, we're not. We're not we can't control our own body, stop it getting old and sick. We can't control, it's hard to control our mind. We can't control the situations in our lives. Things happen, Would we have asked for a war in Ukraine? No, there it is. Would we have asked for all the ills that come? Prejudice, hatred, violence, shootings in schools, for heaven's sake, just awful, awful things. We can't control these things. People send their kids out to school, or people go to the supermarket, or they go to a mall. You have a complete guarantee you're going to come back, You don't have to live in fear of this. But to entrust ourselves to the universe, and trust ourselves. Even if something awful happens, there is something within which it all takes place. There's something greater than what we can see, greater than our little mind, our little experience. And if something terrible happens to us or to somebody we love, we have to just accept it. Do the best we can with it. It doesn't mean if we ask for help and protection, doesn't mean nothing bad will ever happen to us. But we can choose how we perceive it, choose how we treat it, how we see it within ourselves, and how we respond. We don't have to respond with anger and hatred or judgment. We can respond with compassion as best we can. When something terrible happens, it may be hard to feel compassion for somebody who did something awful to someone we know. And yet, a happy person doesn't go in and shoot a bunch of people on the 4th of July, or go into a school and shoot the kids. It's a terrible suffering to be like that. So if we can find compassion for people who do these dreadful things, and know that if I'd been in that situation, who knows how this person was brought up, and who knows what they've faced in their life? Would I be like that? I don't know. Maybe I would. And yet they have a choice. People choose to do what they do. And we can still have compassion. One doesn't stand against the other. We all need help. We're all vulnerable. We're all fragile beings. None of us can completely control our fate. Life is uncertain. Our world is uncertain. And yet, we still have to live, to step out, to live our life with kindness, with fearlessness, not letting things stop us, and with joy. There's joy in life. There's joy in our practice, joy in our training, and not to bind ourselves up with fearfulness and worry and self-judgment. Oh, I'm not worthy of help. There's the other thing. I'm not worthy to ask for help. Well, we are. We can. If you don't, we still get help. But if you can just say, no judgment. I don't have to judge myself. I don't have to judge anybody else. Self-judgment is our great bane. It's much easier to be kind to somebody else than to be kind to ourselves, as most of us know. We need help all the time. Our human life is frail, transient, uncertain. We're fragile beings. And, just to be realistic, to face our life bravely, do our best to train within it, and not to let fear or hatred or selfishness stop us from living our life as wholeheartedly as we can. Willingness to ask for help, willingness to change. How can I do better? What do I need to do here? That openness. I don't know everything. I need help. I need some advice here, maybe, Always looking towards the Buddha, our own true nature, Buddha nature. Looking towards the Dharma, can help us. How do I keep the precepts in this situation? How do I sit still in this situation? How do I train with it? Looking towards the Sangha, those who help us, whether they're monks, lay trainees, our own friends and family, anyone who helps us, letting them help us. Looking to them, not thinking we don't need any help. Everybody needs help. Everybody is connected. We're not, separate in any way. We're not beyond asking for help. Kshtigarbha in our scriptures says it takes millions and millions of transformations, millions and millions of forms of compassion, of willingness to help, of protection. Everywhere we look, we can see. If we look, there's help to be found. Just to be able to sit still and take a breath before we do something we wish we hadn't. Just to take a breath. That's compassion, That's the Dharma. To sit still before we react and do something. Not to be pushed around by fearfulness or judgment or hatred and anger. So easy to become angry and hateful when we see anger and hatred in our world. But how are we going to stop it if we don't start with ourselves? We need to work on our own anger and hatred, our own fear and judgment. Because anger and hatred usually are based in fear. The people are afraid of the other, so they hate them. If they knew them, they wouldn't worry, it would be fine. But people are afraid of the other, what they think of as the other. They don't know them, and therefore they fear them, and therefore they can be prejudiced or hateful or angry. Can we have compassion for that? Can we kind of reach through that, even in our own mind, and say, I won't join in this, I won't feed anger and hatred. I will work on compassion, love and wisdom. Because people who are hateful and angry, boy, they need compassion more than anybody, because it's so hard being that way. Earth treasury, the jewel, found everywhere in our lives, as I've said, in the most mundane of things, as well as in the sublime. That which is precious, the Dharma, the earth treasury, the treasury, is found everywhere. No matter how small or insignificant a thing might seem to be, how small a thing might be, treat it with respect. The little circumstances of our lives, the little incidents that happen, to pay attention, to be aware of them. Did I just hurt somebody's feelings by saying something a little thoughtless? Not just sort of, oh well, but did I? Am I being skillful here, My mind, am I thinking angry thoughts, or am I just living in fear, or just reacting out of fear of something, or hatred, or envy, jealousy, all those things. We can learn for everything that arises within us, everything that comes from without. All these things can help us. We can learn from them, no matter how small and seemingly insignificant they might appear. Nothing is completely to be overlooked. Everything actually has some kind of significance. We don't have to bind ourselves, stuck trying to think of everything, but just to notice the things that happen in our lives. There's always hope for our world. The Bodhisattvas appear to help beings in the world. And as one of our dear monks said, there's nothing anyone can do about it. They're going to keep on helping us. Cruising over the sea of suffering, helping beings. It's us to look up, see them helping us. And when we see that hook come by, grab onto it. That hook of the Dharma that helps us out of that sea of suffering. Helps us to work with our lives. Doesn't mean everything will go away and we'll all be happy forever. But it helps us not to be resentful, not to be judgmental, not to be fearful, angry all the time, but to take things as being for our help. How can I use this to the good? How can I use it to help me? Not to be judging all the time or worrying about everything. To practice true acceptance, acceptance of what comes our way. How can this help me? How can I make the best of it? How can I make the most of it, even if it seems difficult? How can I use it to help me with my life? Faith, the practice of faith, there is something beyond what we see and know. There are the Bodhisattvas, there is Buddha nature, there is our own true nature, there is the Dharma that helps us, there are people who can help us. To entrust ourselves to these things, to entrust ourselves especially to our own true nature that will not abandon us no matter what we do, it will always be with us. To act as though we knew it was so, even when we don't. To act as though we were Buddhas, even when we don't think we are. To do the best we can with the things in our lives, and when we mess it up, which we often do, to forgive ourselves. Oh, what did I do? Let's try and learn from that. Not to castigate ourselves, but to learn. Sorry, I'm sorry about that. I wish to do better. Keep on doing that. To remember, to keep looking towards our true nature, looking towards that which can help us. There is hope for our world, because everybody has that Buddha nature. We're all part of it. And it is compassion itself. It's not faceless, senseless, uncaring. There's something much deeper than that. And we can aspire to that and entrust ourselves to it. Suffering is transient. Life is transient. And Kshtigarbha shows us the jewel, the Dharma, which is real and does not change. Buddha nature. We all are part of that. We can entrust ourselves to it. And as he says to Shakyamuni Buddha, don't be worried. I'll take care of it. Which I think is lovely. And that's our talk for the day. Thank you.